The diplomatic vessel shuddered as Grant pushed it beyond recommended speeds. Warning lights flashed across the console, but he ignored them. Behind them, 3 Council interceptors had appeared on the long-range scanners. "They're gaining," Powell said, her fingers flying over the navigation console. These diplomatic shuttles weren't built for outrunning military craft. Grant nodded grimly. "The sickness corridor is just ahead. Once we're in, they'll have a harder time tracking us." The Cygnus Corridor was infamous among space travelers, a dense asteroid field laced with radiation pockets that scrambled sensors and communications. Most pilots avoided it entirely. Today, it was their only hope. "Hang on," Grant called as he yanked the controls hard to starboard. The ship groaned in protest as they plunged into the swirling rocks and dust. Powell braced herself against the console. 2 of them are still following. The 3rd is holding position at the entrance. "Smart," Grant muttered. "They're calling for backup." He weaved through floating boulders, some as small as a fist, others as large as Earth's moon. The radiation made the navigational display flicker and jump. Grant was flying half by instruments, half by instinct. A blast of energy struck their port side, sending the ship spinning. Grant fought the controls, stabilizing their flight path just in time to avoid a massive asteroid. "Direct hit to our communications array," Powell reported. "We can't send messages now. We just need to stay alive long enough to reach Earth," Grant said, sweat beading on his forehead as he executed a tight maneuver between 2 colliding rocks. The pursuing Council ships were more heavily armored but less agile. As Grant watched in the rear display, one of them clipped an asteroid and spun out of control, crashing into a larger rock in a brilliant explosion. "One down," Powell said without celebration. The situation was still dire. The remaining interceptor fired again, this time hitting their engine housing. The ship lurched, and a series of alarms blared through the cabin. "We're losing power to the main drive," Grant said, his voice tight. "We need to find somewhere to hide until they pass." Powell pointed to a cluster of larger asteroids ahead. "There, that formation might shield us from their sensors." Grant guided their wounded ship into a narrow gap between 2 massive rocks. He killed the main power, leaving only life support and minimal systems running. In the sudden quiet, they could hear their own breathing. "Now we wait," he whispered. Minutes stretched into an hour as they drifted silently in their rocky hiding place. The Council ship made several passes, firing blindly into asteroid clusters. "They're persistent," Powell observed. Grant nodded. "They know what we have. If this evidence reaches Earth before their fleet, their surprise attack fails." A proximity alarm suddenly chirped softly. Something large was approaching their position. "They found us," Powell whispered. Grant's hand moved to the emergency restart button. "If we're quick, we might." "Wait," Powell interrupted, studying the readings. "That's not a Council design. That's one of ours." The massive shape of a human military vessel appeared through the asteroid field. The U.S. Defiant, a battlecruiser with Earth fleet markings, moved with surprising grace through the debris. "They're hailing any human vessels," Powell said, boosting power to their damaged communications enough to receive. "This is Captain Laura Morrison of the U.S. Defiant. Any Earth vessels in distress, please respond." Grant and Powell looked at each other with the first glimmer of hope they'd felt since watching New Horizon burn. "Let's power up," Grant said, "and pray the Council ship doesn't notice before the Defiant reaches us." Powell nodded, activating their emergency beacon. The U.S. Defiant's medical bay smelled of antiseptic and ozone. Grant sat on an examination table as a medic treated the burns on his arm. Across the room, Powell was already on her feet, arguing with Captain Morrison. "We need to reach Earth immediately," Powell insisted. "The Council fleet could be mobilizing as we speak." Captain Morrison, a stern woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat, shook her head. "My orders are to maintain position at the Jupiter defense line. We intercepted your distress signal on a routine patrol." "Captain," Grant called from his bed. What we have changes everything. He nodded to Powell, who produced the data drive they had rescued from the council station. She inserted it into a secure terminal, and the room fell silent as High Counselor Vex's cold voice detailed plans for humanity's systematic extermination. Morrison's face hardened as she listened. When the recording ended, she turned to her communications officer. "Get me a direct line to Fleet Admiral Reese. Priority Alpha." Within hours, they were rushing toward Earth at maximum speed. Grant and Powell briefed Morrison's senior staff in the ship's war room. A holographic display showed Council territory in red, with human colonies marked in blue. New Horizon was just the beginning, Grant explained, pointing to the outlying colonies. According to the Council's plans, they'll hit these settlements next, working their way toward Earth. Lieutenant Beck, the ship's intelligence officer, studied the data. "There's something strange here. These communications suggest not all Council species supported this action." Powell leaned forward. "What do you mean?" The Novans and Drexians, both Council members, were excluded from these planning sessions. In fact, there's evidence the Arcani leadership deliberately missiled them. Grant's mind raced with possibilities. The Novans have been skeptical of Council authority for decades, and the Drexians nearly went to war with the Arcani a century ago. "You're suggesting we find allies among our enemies?" Morrison asked. "The enemy of my enemy," Grant replied. "If we could convince them of the Arcani's true intentions." Morrison's communications officer interrupted them. "Captain, Admiral Reese has authorized a covert mission based on the ambassador's intelligence. The stealth vessel Nightshade is being prepared at Luna Base." Morrison nodded. "The Nightshade is our newest stealth ship. If anyone can get you to Novan space undetected, it's Major Blackwell and her crew." 2 days later, Grant and Powell stood in the loading bay of the Nightshade, a sleek black vessel designed to slip past the most advanced detection systems. Major Olivia Blackwell greeted them with a firm handshake and a skeptical expression. "So you're the diplomats planning to make friends with the Novans," Blackwell said. Her scared face told stories of close encounters she had barely survived. "We need allies if humanity is going to survive," Powell responded. "The Council's too powerful to fight alone." Blackwell sighed. "The Novans shot down my previous ship 3 years ago, but orders are orders. Welcome aboard the Nightshade." The journey to Novan space took 4 tense days. They navigated through Council patrols, twice nearly being detected. Grant spent the time studying everything known about Novan culture and social hierarchies. "Their elder delegate Zorthal is the key," he told Powell as they approached Novan territory. "He's been vocal about Arcani overreach before." "If we can convince him," Powell added, "the Novans bring significant firepower to our side." Blackwell joined them on the bridge as they prepared to cross into Novan space. "We'll have approximately 8 minutes before their border sensors detect us, even with our stealth systems. Make your transmission count." Grant took a deep breath as Powell prepared the evidence package they would broadcast. "Sending in 3, 2, 1. Powell activated the transmission. The fate of humanity now depended on whether a traditionally hostile alien species would listen to their warning, or simply shoot them down on sight. Admiral Reese stood before the holographic war table, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of tactical displays. Around him, the commanding officers of Earth's defense fleet watched as he outlined Operation Sundering. "The Novans and Drexians have confirmed their support," Reese announced. "As we speak, their fleets are moving to these coordinates." He pointed to several key positions surrounding Council space. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Clark studied the battle plan with narrowed eyes. A veteran pilot with over 30 combat missions, he would lead the primary assault squadron. "Sir, the Council shipyards at Proxima Centauri are their most heavily defended asset," Clark noted. "What makes us think we can hit them successfully?" Reese nodded toward a slender man standing in the shadows. "Mr. Foster, if you would explain." Intelligence analyst Kevin Foster stepped forward. Though young, his reputation for uncovering enemy weaknesses was legendary. The Council diverted 40% of their defense forces to support the planned assault on human colonies. Their shipyards are vulnerable for the next 72 hours. Clark nodded, satisfied. Then we hit them hard and fast. Exactly, Reese confirmed. This isn't just a defensive action. We're taking the fight to them. Across the room, Civilian Director Nickel Harris frowned. While you launch this attack, what happens to Earth? Our planetary defenses can't stop a determined Council assault. That's why timing is everything, Reese replied. Your evacuation protocols need to be ready. Get as many civilians to the underground shelters as possible. Harris didn't look convinced, but she nodded. We've been preparing since the warning came from Ambassadors Grant and Powell. The primary shelters can hold 60% of the population. The meeting concluded with somber determination. Everyone understood the stakes. This was humanity's one chance to strike back before the full weight of Council forces arrived. 2 days later, Clark sat in the cockpit of his fighter, leading a wing of 30 attack craft toward the Proxima Centauri shipyards. Behind them, larger destroyers and battleships moved into position. All wings report in, Clark ordered over the comm. One by one, his squadron leaders confirmed their readiness. Most were veterans, but some were fresh pilots rushed through training after the New Horizon massacre. Remember your approach vectors, Clark instructed. The Novan intelligence on their defensive grid is our edge. Hit your targets and get out before their reinforcements arrive. As they dropped out of faster-than-light travel, the massive Council shipyards appeared before them. A sprawling complex of construction docks, defensive platforms, and half-built warships. They haven't spotted us yet, his sensor officer reported. Stealth systems holding. Clark allowed himself a tight smile. All wings, commence attack. The human fighters accelerated toward their targets, weapons hot. The first barrage hit 3 defensive platforms before alarms began blaring throughout the Council facility. By then, Clark's squadron was already tearing through the shipyard's outer ring. Primary targets acquired, Clark called, locking weapons on the main power core. Firing now. His missiles streaked toward the central hub. The explosion that followed lit up space like a newborn star. Chain reactions spread through the facility as ammunition stores and fuel cells detonated. Back on Earth, Director Harris watched live feeds of thousands of civilians filing into underground bunkers. News of the attack on the Council shipyards had spread, giving people hope even as they prepared for the worst. Sector 7 shelters are at capacity, an aide reported, moving overflow to the mountain facilities. Harris nodded, checking the latest orbital scans. Any sign of Council forces? Not yet, but our long-range detectors show activity at their forward bases. They're coming. In the Council emergency session, Grant and Powell stood before representatives of 17 species who had broken away from Arcani leadership. The evidence of planned genocide had shattered the Council's unity. Humanity doesn't seek conquest, Grant assured them. We seek survival and justice for what happened at New Horizon. The Drexian ambassador rose. The Arcani have lied to us all. Today, we stand with humanity. As cheers filled the chamber, Powell's communicator blinked with an incoming message. The first wave of Council loyalist ships had broken through Earth's outer defenses. The real battle was about to begin. Kevin Foster hadn't slept in 3 days. His office at Earth Command was littered with empty coffee cups and holographic displays showing captured Council data. Something wasn't adding up in the intelligence reports. Why now? He muttered, rubbing his bloodshot eyes. Why attack humanity after welcoming us into galactic society? He scrolled through thousands of decoded Council messages, looking for patterns. Most were military communications about the planned attacks on human colonies, but buried among them were older files, some dating back centuries before humanity's first contact with alien life. Foster froze when a particular file caught his attention. It was marked with the highest Arcani security classification. Using decryption codes provided by the Drexians, he opened it. His hands trembled as he read. This can't be right. Across the solar system, Ambassador Grant was meeting with a Drexian information broker named Trix on a neutral space station. The small, six-limbed alien slid a data crystal across the table. "What you asked for was not easy to find," Trix said, voice barely above a whisper. "The Arcani have hidden their true history for millennia." Grant picked up the crystal. "What's on this?" "Access to the ancient archives. Records the Arcani thought they had destroyed long ago. My people kept copies, hidden from Council censors." "What will I find?" Trix's compound eyes darkened. "The truth about what happened to the 17 spacefaring civilizations that came before yours." Back on Earth, Foster's urgent message reached Admiral Reese's command center. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," Foster said, his image flickering on the holographic display. "The Arcani aren't just targeting humans. They've been systematically eliminating any species that might challenge their dominance." Reese frowned. "We suspected as much after the New Horizon attack." "No, sir, you don't understand. This isn't new behavior. I found records indicating the Arcani have been doing this for over 50,000 years. They allow new species to join the Council, learn their weaknesses, then orchestrate their destruction when they grow too powerful or independent." Reese's face paled. "You're saying humanity is just the latest target in a cycle that's been repeating since before we left our caves, and the Arcani have hidden this truth from the other Council species." Halfway across the galaxy, Captain Morrison led a small team through the abandoned research facility on Ta Ceti. Her squad moved cautiously through dark corridors, weapons ready. "Life signs ahead," her security officer whispered. "Non-human." Morrison nodded, signaling her team to advance quietly. They emerged into a vast chamber filled with thousands of transparent containers. Inside each was a preserved body. Aliens of various shapes and sizes, some humanoid, others completely foreign. "What is this place?" Morrison breathed. Her science officer scanned the nearest containers. "These are biological specimens. Different species. Many not in any of our databases." Morrison approached a central console and activated it. A holographic display appeared, showing 17 different alien species. Beneath each image was a name and a date, the last confirmed date of their civilization's existence. These weren't just research subjects. Morrison realized with growing horror. These were the dominant species of their time, before the Arcani eliminated them. She downloaded the facility's records while her team collected biological samples as evidence. One container held a being that looked almost human, except for its golden skin and 4 arms. "The Solarians," her science officer read from the display, "exterminated 23,000 years ago after developing faster-than-light technology that didn't rely on Council-controlled routes." Morrison's communicator beeped with an incoming message from Earth Command. Ambassador Powell's face appeared, her expression urgent. "Captain, we need you back immediately. Grant has confirmed Foster's findings with independent evidence from the Drexians. The Arcani aren't just fighting for control. They're following a systematic plan of galactic genocide that's been ongoing for millennia." Morrison looked around at the chamber of extinct species. "We've found proof of that here, and I think I know why they targeted humanity next." "Why?" "Because like the Solarians before us, we were beginning to develop technologies that would make us truly independent of Council control. The revelation transformed the nature of the conflict. What had begun as humanity's struggle for survival was becoming a multi-species revolution against a hidden oppressor." The space around Alpha Centauri blazed with weapons fire. Hundreds of ships engaged in the largest battle humanity had ever witnessed. Earth vessels fought alongside Novan and Drexian warships against the Arcani-led Council forces. Admiral Reese stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display as red and blue markers clashed across the battlefield. His silver hair was disheveled from hours of combat operations. "The Novan battle group is taking heavy losses in Sector 4, his tactical officer reported. Reese nodded grimly. "Direct the 7th Fleet to reinforce their position. We can't let the Arcani break through that line." Nearby, Novan Fleet Commander Vexnor clicked his mandibles in frustration. The tall, insect-like alien had fought alongside humans for weeks now, despite centuries of distrust between their species. The Arcani command vessel is holding position behind our front lines, Vexnor observed. They are cowards, unwilling to risk themselves. Then we bring the fight to them, Reese replied. He turned to his communications officer. Signal Major Blackwell. Operation Spearhead is a go. Far from the main battle, the stealth ship Nightshade slipped past Council patrols. Major Olivia Blackwell studied the schematics of their target, the Eternal Dominion, flagship of the Arcani fleet and command center for their operations. Their outer shields are designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, she told her strike team. But our boarding pods can penetrate at close range if we time it right. Among her team were specialists from 3 different species, humans, Novans, and Drexians, all united by the evidence of Arcani genocide. Remember, Blackwell continued, our primary objective is to capture High Commander Vortek and secure the command codes for their defense network. Secondary objective is data retrieval from their main computer. The team nodded, checking their weapons one last time. Many had lost family or friends to Arcani attacks. Approaching target, the pilot announced. Stealth systems at maximum. Blackwell gave the order. Launch boarding pods. 3 small, dart-like vessels shot from the Nightshade, streaking toward the massive Arcani flagship. They hit the hull with precision, cutting through the outer armor with specialized drills. Inside the Eternal Dominion, alarms blared as Blackwell led her team through narrow corridors. They encountered resistance immediately, Arcani guards firing high-powered energy weapons. Take cover, Blackwell shouted as energy bolts sizzled past her head. The firefight was intense but brief. The strike team had trained for this mission for weeks, and their coordination showed. They pushed forward toward the command deck, leaving stunned or dead Arcani in their wake. Meanwhile, across all communication channels, Grant and Powell broadcast the evidence of Arcani atrocities. From the safety of a human battleship, they transmitted the ancient archives showing millennia of orchestrated extinctions. These are not just human accusations. Powell's voice reached ships across the battlefield. These are the Arcani's own records, their own words condemning them. The effect was immediate. Several Council ships, particularly those from species who had discovered they were also targeted for eventual elimination, stopped firing on human vessels. Some turned their weapons against the Arcani ships beside them. On the Eternal Dominion, Blackwell's team fought their way to the command deck. A blast caught her in the shoulder, burning through her armor. She staggered but kept moving, her determination unbroken. Command deck sealed, reported her Drexian specialist. Heavy doors, impossible to breach directly. Blackwell smiled through her pain. Then we go around. She pointed to a maintenance shaft. That leads to life support for the command deck. We cut that off. They'll open the doors themselves. The plan worked. When the command deck's air began to thin, panicked Arcani officers opened the doors, directly into the weapons of Blackwell's team. High Commander Vortek, the architect of countless genocides, raised his 4 arms in surrender. His pale, elongated face showed no emotion as Blackwell secured him. The command codes, she demanded, pressing her weapon against him. Now, with the capture of Vortek and the broadcast of their crimes, the Arcani fleet fell into chaos. Ships began to retreat or surrender as their allies turned against them. Admiral Reese watched the tactical display as the red markers representing enemy forces began to disappear. Sir, his communications officer called. Major Blackwell reports mission accomplished. She's wounded, but they have Vortek and the command codes. For the first time in the long months since New Horizons' destruction, Reese allowed himself a small smile. Signal all ships, he ordered. Press the advantage. Today we make history. Sunlight streamed through the transparent dome of the rebuilt New Horizon colony. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Alpha Centauri, where destruction once reigned. A new city now stood, its architecture blending styles from 37 different spacefaring species. William Grant adjusted his formal uniform as he prepared to address the gathered representatives. The Grand Hall was filled with beings from across the galaxy, former enemies now seated together as allies. The newly formed Galactic Confederation was holding its first official assembly. Nervous? Samantha Powell asked, joining him at the entrance. Grant smiled. A little. It's not every day you help reshape galactic politics. Powell nodded toward the audience. Half those species were trying to kill us a year ago. Now they're our strongest supporters. Amazing what a common enemy will do, Grant replied. Though I prefer to think it was the common desire for freedom that united us. A chime sounded, signaling the start of the ceremony. Grant walked to the central podium, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. Representatives of the Galactic Confederation, he began, his voice carrying across the hall. 1 year ago, many of us stood on opposite sides of a conflict that threatened to destroy not just humanity, but eventually all free species. Today, we gather as equals, determined that no single power will ever again decide which civilizations deserve to exist. Murmurs of approval spread through the assembly. Grant continued, his words measured and clear. The principles of self-determination and mutual defense will guide our new community. Each species brings unique strengths and perspectives. Our differences are not threats to be eliminated, but gifts to be celebrated. In the front row, Novan Elder Delegate Zorthel clicked his approval. Beside him, representatives from 20 other former council species nodded in agreement. Across the colony, Samantha Powell led a different kind of meeting. The Accountability Commission had been her idea, a way to address the crimes of the past while building toward a better future. The trial of High Commander Vortek continues next week, she informed the commission members. But our work goes beyond punishment. We must restore what was lost, the cultural heritage of species decimated by Arcani aggression. A Telosian representative raised a slender hand. We have discovered archives of the Solarians in an abandoned Arcani facility. Their art, their music, treasures we thought lost forever. Powell smiled. This is exactly our purpose, to preserve and restore, not just to judge. At the rebuilt spaceport, Admiral Laura Morrison inspected the refitted U.S. Defiant. The ship bore battle scars from the war, now covered with armor plating shared by Novan engineers. She's ready, Admiral, the shipyard supervisor reported. Morrison nodded with pride. Her promotion had come after the battle, along with command of the Confederation's Rapid Response Fleet. The multi-species force was designed for one purpose, to ensure no genocide would ever again go unchallenged. The mixed crews are working well together, she asked. Better than expected. The Novans and humans have developed quite the friendly rivalry in engineering. Keeps everyone on their toes. Morrison smiled as she watched a Drexian technician working alongside a human engineer, adjusting the ship's new sensor array. On Earth, children gathered in a classroom overlooking the rebuilt skyline of New Washington. Buildings rose from the ashes of those destroyed in the Council's attacks, their designs blending Earth aesthetics with alien influences. Who can tell me why we celebrate Unity Day? The teacher asked. A young boy raised his hand. Because it's when humans and aliens stopped fighting each other and started fighting together. That's part of it, the teacher replied. But it's also when we learned an important lesson, that differences don't have to divide us. Beyond the settled systems, exploration vessels ventured into regions long forbidden under Arcani rule. They discovered ruins of ancient civilizations, species that had resisted and fallen, leaving behind technologies and philosophies that had been suppressed for millennia. A joint human-Novan research team activated a device found in one such ruin. A holographic map appeared, showing thousands of stars beyond known space. What do you think it means? A human scientist asked her Novan colleague. The Novan studied the map with all 4 eyes. It means our journey is just beginning. Back at New Horizon, Grant concluded his address to thunderous applause from dozens of species. Today marks not an ending, but a beginning. Together, we stand at the dawn of a new era, one where no single species dictates the fate of others, one where the stars belong to all of us. For 30 years, Earth tried to be friends with the powerful aliens of the Galactic Confederation. But no matter what humans did, the aliens always looked down on them. They made unfair rules, blocked Earth ships from good trade routes, and treated humans like children who didn't deserve respect. Admiral Frank Carter walked slowly through the hallway of the United Earth Council building. His uniform was perfectly pressed, but dark circles under his eyes showed his exhaustion. The emergency meeting today would change everything. They'd gone too far this time, he muttered to himself. Inside the Grand Chamber, 50 council members from all Earth nations sat in worried silence. Holographic maps floated in the air, showing the latest problem. A complete blockade of Earth ships trying to reach Proxima Centauri, humanity's first colony beyond the solar system. Council President Diane Powell, a tall woman with steel-gray hair, nodded at Carter to begin. "Ladies and gentlemen," Carter said, his deep voice filling the room, "the Confederation has cut off our supply lines to Proxima Centauri. Our colonists have food and medicine for only 3 weeks. When we asked why, they simply said Earth ships pose a security risk to their operations." Angry voices filled the room. Councilor Olivia Martinez slammed her hand on the table. "This is the 3rd vital supply route they've blocked this year. My people in South America have lost billions in trade contracts because of these barriers." William Foster, the oldest councilor, spoke next. His voice was quiet but firm. "We've tried being patient. We've tried following their rules. Nothing works. They do not respect us and never will." "What are our options?" Powell asked, looking directly at Carter. Carter took a deep breath. This was the moment he had prepared for. "It's time to activate Project Exodus." The room went completely silent. Project Exodus was Earth's greatest secret, a plan so bold that many thought it was just a fantasy. "Is it ready?" Powell asked. Carter nodded. "The technology works. We've tested it on small scales, away from Confederation sensors. They have no idea what we've developed." "And the risks?" asked Foster. "Enormous," Carter admitted. "If we do this, there's no going back. The Confederation will see it as the greatest insult in their 1,000-year history. They might declare war." Martinez stood up, her eyes flashing with determination. "Let them try. I'm tired of begging for fair treatment. My grandmother was at first contact. She believed meeting aliens would open a new age of progress and friendship. Instead, we got treated like servants." Powell looked around the room. "We need to vote. This is the biggest decision since Earth unified." One by one, the councilors voted. The result was clear. 48 yes, 2 no. Powell's face was solemn. "Admiral Carter, you have authorization to begin Project Exodus preparations immediately." As Carter left the chamber, his young aide, Lieutenant Gregory Nash, hurried alongside him. "Sir, is this really happening?" Nash asked, his voice a mix of excitement and fear. Carter nodded. "Send the coded message to all Earth military bases. Phoenix Rising. All leave is canceled. All secret projects move to final phase." "Do you think the Confederation will try to stop us?" Nash asked. Carter looked out a window at the blue sky of Earth, the home planet that humans had nearly destroyed many times, but always managed to save. "They'll try," he said with a grim smile. "But they have no idea what humans can do when we're backed into a corner. After all these years looking down on us, they're about to learn." Earth was done saying please. Earth was ready to say goodbye.